here, and I just want to see parents and teens get along even better than they're already getting along, because a lot of the people I work with don't have major problems. It's just like you want to tweak it, you want to become better communicators, better supporters of your teens. So thank you all also for being here. I know a lot of you guys are working, you could be doing other things right now, and you're spending your time with me, so that's why I want to be respectful and get started. And I also just want to thank you for being here and caring about your kids and your family that much that you would spend the time with me. So that's greatly appreciated, and putting yourself first and your family first. So I wanted to start with a question, and sometimes people are interactive, sometimes they aren't, but if anybody wants to unmute, if they want to put it in the chat, what's your biggest challenge in communicating with your teen? Before I get into what I'm talking about, like, what are you guys seeing that you might want to share? If you don't feel comfortable sharing, fair enough. But if anybody wants to unmute or wants to drop something in the chat, feel free. I'd love to kind of see. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rima.
She doesn't
You want to share?
She doesn't tell me anything. And I ask her, she doesn't tell me anything.
Okay. What do you tend to do? Like, what do you tend to ask her? Like, hey, how was school? Or just like basic questions, or
Anything. I ask her about school, about her friends. Good. That's all.
yeah, very like short and sweet. Okay, got it. I'll touch upon that as well. Anybody else? Elizabeth, same thing. Yeah, not too much sharing. Alejandra, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the same thing, but also I think the challenge is to find a place or a moment to like first maybe talk about other things and then maybe ask more about her stuff, or first I try to tell her about my stuff. She doesn't she doesn't care. But I don't find the moment or the place. Like during the weekdays, we are all like very in a hurry. She comes back very late because she do gymnastics 4 times a week. So it's only Wednesdays that we have, like, she comes earlier, and then during weekends she may go to other friends, or it's hard for us to find a moment to share. We try to do meals together, but at the same time it's hard. Finding the place, and then she will answer nothing. I will wake her up and say, get out of my room, like she's in that moment now, like. And I know it's not personal, but I like her to feel that I'm here for her, but
well, it's interesting. You made 2 really good points there. One, to not take it personal, as hard as it is, because that's your baby and they're pushing you away. And, and you're very smart to, when she is pushing you away, take a step back. But when you do find that moment, and it would be nice to schedule that in every week if possible. That's something I was going to touch upon as well. But yeah, like if it's that moment of push energy, then it's step away. If there's that moment where they might, just letting you in, or, that's when you want to capitalize on it, but not attack, because you want to just share everything. You want to ask all the questions.
Yeah. I try to play cool, but it's hard.
Okay. Yes, definitely. And I'm seeing Maria is saying that she's struggling with the social skills for her teens. And Maria, I'm not necessarily talking about peer-to-peer communication, but this communication could lead into peer-to-peer. But it's good that they have no problem communicating with you. But I do work with a lot of kids that are, whether they're autistic or they don't like. I'm working with a boy currently. He's very like focused, high achieving, but just the emotional intelligence and like liking a girl or something is something that he hasn't experienced. So whether it's, making friends, whether it's interacting with the opposite sex, yes, the social skills, it's tough for kids. So 100% agree. And with that being said, if you wanted to, and I said this earlier and I'll say it again, if you want to drop your email, Maria, I have some videos I created, and I can share some free resources with you through email. If you just, I'll take, have the chat, I'll review the chat later, and I'll definitely share you send some resources to you. And at the end, I'll share my group with you guys if you want to join my group or whatever it might be. But yeah, so some of the challenges, they don't open up. That's like the number one. That was the number one I had. Does anybody have like their conversations end in arguments, or are you not at that, or is it just the whole kind of like, yeah, it's more just not talking, then, and if they're in it's, I guess that's when you have that push energy and you kind of like are trying to force them, that's when they get really frustrated. And sometimes it's difficult, but as Alejandra said, to not take it personal, it's just where
Oh,
they're at right
but
now.
sometimes it's like when they treat you not okay with no reason, it's like, okay, let's go backwards, and this is not the way you have, like, I don't take it personal, but it's not respectful. So it depends on my humor, on my mood. Sometimes I walk away, but sometimes it's okay, listen, even you don't want me here, this is not the way. So yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
Alejandra, very important to set those boundaries, obviously, absolutely. Because I mean, just because they're not in a good mood doesn't mean we tippy toe around them, but we also, we want to respect them. But if we're not getting the respect we receive, that needs to be addressed. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
because
she
there's no
shared
reason.
the room with the sister, so she has to share, and we live on the same place, so we have to, yeah, share places, moments. So yeah.
No, 100%, 100%. I agree. Absolutely. I know, and I'll just briefly explain who I am. I know some of you have been on calls with me before, some of you haven't. But basically, I've been working with families for 20 years. I was a teacher, an assistant principal, a college professor, and I just exited education completely. I retired after 20 years. But with that being said, I definitely saw a need. And again, know that I fully support public, private, all educators. I just know that they're set up for academics and not necessarily for support. And in that, I say, and what I mean by that is we have very good educators and counselors and things, but they're really outnumbered by kids. You have, over 500 kids for one guidance counselor at my last school. So with that being said, I saw this need of, I would have kids come to my office with the same issues, whether it be anxiety over their grades, not getting, peer interactions, just feeling overwhelmed, getting into trouble, whatever it might be. And that just, they kept repeating the same behaviors. So that's how I got into coaching was, I was like, oh, I'm actually doing this already. And then I added some more skills to my tool belt. And now it's like I really help kids get to the root cause of why they're behaving a certain way, acting a certain way, thinking a certain way, believing certain things. And they begin to shift their beliefs about themselves. And in turn, that helps to build, the capacity in your relationship. So just a little bit about me. You can follow me on social media. There's all kinds of posts and things like that. But essentially, I'm an educator and I'm here to just, help the community for sure. So some goals for today is like, understanding their needs and their motivation. We know a lot of kids at this point, they don't have that intrinsic motivation. I had a senior in high school last night say that they didn't want a reward for their chores. It's like, finally, and that was a senior. So, everybody's at a different level and we got to meet them where they're at. And then I have 11-year-olds who have their task list ready to go and so it just depends upon the kid. And yeah, so teens again need to be seen, heard, validate their experiences, and need to feel they have some sort of choice. And again, they can't have choice in all situations, but as much as we can help them with that. And yeah, it's just about strengthening their bonds, building building trust, and really empowering their growth, and working as a team. So here's some, I don't know if you guys want to share, but I had a list of phrases of like, do you guys want to share any phrases your teen uses just to shut you down? I mean, I had some like, the basics, like, I don't want to talk about it. You wouldn't understand. I get a lot of things like when I'm, speaking with kids, it's like, oh no, I'm good, or I'm fine. Or, and it's like, it doesn't mean that they're crumbling and they're falling apart, but just by saying I'm fine, they might not feel that vulnerability to share yet, or they don't, a lot of times high achievers don't think it's that important. Like, it's not that big a deal. So it isn't as if, they think like, oh, there's people starving in Africa. That's a huge deal. And I'm stressing about my homework. It's not that big a deal. I can handle it. But truly, like, there's a way for you to interact and you don't have to be stressed and overwhelmed and you can still get your homework done. as we touched upon earlier, you know, when they're saying, you know, can we talk about this later? Or, you know, stop overreacting, or I don't care, or leave me alone, you know, all those things of, you know, so what's underneath that? You know, they're not sure how to handle what's really going on. Cause a lot of times in this age, they're just handling big emotions they've never felt before, you know? So it's, I don't know how to handle these big emotions. I'm afraid to share it, even though I know you love me and you care about me, but like, you're not going to understand this, even though you've already lived this, you know, of course. And we've all been there. So we completely get it. So some of you guys have high achievers and they are living to their full potential. Some might be frustrated that they're doing okay, but they're not, you know, maybe fulfilling, you know, living to what they could be living up to. And that's not to say that you need to set expectations that they can't meet or be hardcore on expectations, but, you know, you can tell when you're the level of effort your child is giving into what they need to do. At this point, and I heard Elizabeth mention it earlier, she's like, you know, I was worried about letting my daughter go to the store, you know, it's across the street from the school. This comes up all the time. I used to work in a school with stores across the street. You know, it's a busy road. Who's going to be at this store, this ice cream place, or whatever it is, you know? So there's just an example of how much independence do you give your teen, and how much, you know, control do you give them? And then it's a car, and then it's this, and then it's the next thing. So that's where I see a lot of parents sit at this point. And with that comes the worrying about things that are out of your control. So yes, totally get it. And you know, and that's why it's baby steps. You know, you're not going to give a 16-year-old the car right off the bat first day. You know, you know, they have to work up to that. So and then a big thing with parents, and I know there might be some dads on here too, but especially with moms, is prioritizing yourself. So it's a lot of times parents get very involved in their teen's life, which is fantastic. But what about your life and taking care of yourself and your emotions? Because you can't help others if you're not taking care of yourself. So it's a thing I always put in all my talks. Anytime I'm talking to a parent, like, what are you doing for you? So that might be a reminder for some of you. If you haven't done any self-care this week, maybe take a half hour to yourself, take a bubble bath, do something nice, read a book, you know, just to help ground yourself. That's always very important. So yeah, so I'll get into the kind of 3 secrets I've found with communicating with teens. So, you know, and some of you guys have mentioned, like, you might not have a whole lot of conflicts, but you might get shut down and they're not really talking to you or getting, you know, deep in. But a lot of times it's best, like we said, if you're grounding yourself and then you're also reflecting on, you know, what triggered this conflict. So it isn't to say there's a blame, but kind of looking at yourself and like, did I escalate what was happening in this problem with this situation? You know, was I not in a good state? And then I engage with my teen. So step 1 is always like reflecting on our role in what's happening. And then if you determine like, hey, I was in a good place, I wasn't aggressive, I didn't, you know, then it's handling it with your teen if they did become, you know, disrespectful or just didn't want to talk at that time. So always, you know, kind of like we were speaking about earlier, just disengage if the energy is not there, cool off if there was an argument. And, you know, sometimes you need to be vulnerable with them. And I know Alejandra said it earlier, like, she doesn't care what's going on with me. And a lot of times, no, they're just literally like, it's what's happening with my peers at school, period, or my peer or whoever I'm in soccer or dance with or whatever it is. So yeah, they might not care so much or seem like they care, but the more vulnerable or the more you can share, like if they're having trouble with their morning routine, like, you know, model it and share yours, and they might tune you off, but they're still going to hear something, you know? So it's again, you know, giving them that choice, but also sharing, you know, yourself. And, you know, I have a mom that I work with now, and, you know, she was really getting into big conflicts with her daughter. She was missing the bus. She would have to take her to school. Like, it was this big thing every morning. They were arguing and there wasn't really a reason. It wasn't like her daughter couldn't just get up and go, and she, you know, there's no obstacles there. She just wasn't doing it. And, you know, we work together now, and mom will like message me prior to our session every week, explain how the week went. She even like says, I could have handled this way. She kind of is really open with me. I work on, I work with her daughter and what her daughter wants to work on and what she needs to work on. And I also take what mom says into account and kind of give her that perspective too. And then I'll talk about it in my next slide a little bit, but we also found like a remedy to the constant, like mom was always going into her grades and it was stressing her out. And mom was like taking on all this energy of the grades that her daughter was supposed to be worrying about, so, and not necessarily worrying about, but handling. So it kind of leads me to my second slide is we implemented like weekly one-on-one check-ins, and her daughter heads that up. She does it right after we meet. So it's kind of like right now I'm kind of hand holding her through it a little bit, but we set like, what are you going to talk about with mom today? What doesn't she know that you didn't share about school yet? What about the weekend? Because, her daughter wants to do this and they get in a fight about plans, so kind of ahead of time, being proactive with mom, sharing like, I really want to do this on Saturday. And if mom still says no, fair enough, but you've proactively shared with her, the things that are happening. So I used to do this in school with teachers. The teachers would check in with all their kids. I was over the social studies department, and the kids just, that individualized time felt really good for them in the classroom. And I know some of your teens might turn you off and say, but there is a part of them that does want that individual time with you, even though they're not sharing that anymore, so it's a good thing too, to prepare them for high school, because in high school, I was an assistant principal and parents would come straight to me. And I'm like, my first question was, did your child speak to the teacher? No. Did you speak to the teacher? No. Okay, well, hold on a minute. So, it's not that I wasn't going to help the family. It wasn't going to support them. Sometimes the teacher was challenging. Sometimes that wasn't the case. But point being, we're giving them, that the skills to advocate for themselves. Because when they go to college, they're not going to have you calling and emailing the teacher, so if they can start with the one-on-one check-ins with you, even if your kid has straight A's and you're just checking in about, like, how do you want, is there goals you're setting? Do you want to do something better? Is there something you're struggling with? It doesn't even have to be that this is a problem meeting. It could just be a positive meeting too. So that's what we kind of, just devoting that time to them is important as well. So that's something that helps the communication, and it becomes their responsibility, and then that takes the responsibility off you, and then that builds the autonomy in them, little by little.
A quick question. When you
Yeah,
said
for sure.
slide, set a consistent day and time each week with 20, 30 minutes, what do you mean? Like, do I like an appointment with your like?
Yeah, actually that's how, and frankly, like this mom, they probably end up meeting for 5 minutes. It doesn't end up being that long.
Okay.
But yeah, she sets a weekly, like, so I meet this girl on Wednesdays at 6:30. So at 7.
You meet with them, not that.
They meet. So no, they meet. Because her daughter kept forgetting to do it or didn't do it, I said, let's set it up. So me and you meet the daughter. I coach her. We have our session, and then mom and her meet after I meet with her. And then she already has like a list of items she wants to share with mom. And so you might have to scaffold that for your child and like start with like, hey, I wanted to share like, let's talk about one good thing we're going to plan for this week. Like a positive thing, start off with a positive. One thing you might be struggling with, how can we work through this together? And then, how can I support you? And then maybe they can bring their grades, and you can have like, even if like, you could have a little celebration, like, oh, I love sitting with you and looking at your grades. Look at how good you did in social studies. It's just like so it could be like that. And they literally have like a little meeting about their life together, essentially.
Right.
So you can structure how you want to structure it, but yeah, they do like check-ins, and it kind of takes that pressure off of the mom, like always hounding and, kind of going after her for different things that she might not be doing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I've seen her also, like now she's scheduling in her community service time. She's actually been really proactive with this. She's an 8th grader, in her 2nd semester right now. So she's planning for high school as well. So yeah. Yeah, good question. Thank you. Oops.
No, because as I told in the beginning, like I don't find the moment to talk. So maybe.
Yeah, and another thing, like I have on the slide here, and I'm not saying this is you, but a lot of parents would be like, yeah, you're like on your phones watching TV and then trying to talk to them, so it's like that dedicated time where like, I'm not going to be on my phone either. I'm just gonna like, I don't know, even if I don't know if you like to play a game together and just, just like some dedicated time, it really goes a long way. So, and keeping it in their schedule for them, just like, because we all have all these activities and we can drive them everywhere and plan all this, but what about our time? And another place is good in the car for like a off the cuff meeting too, because you're not face to face. It's just very like casual. And yeah, that's always a good one. You might know that already, but that's always a good one. Yeah, so and a lot of times there's, a lot of miscommunication was my third point that I wanted to get to. So kind of turning that into understanding. And this is something that isn't necessarily like something that you often read about in a book about, like having a meeting or doing a habits checklist or things that are very tangible. This is more like a visualization of where you want your child to be. So what I would strongly suggest is, like investing in your child where you want them to be, not where they are right now. So for example, if they're really struggling with organization, I put a little thing there instead of saying you need to be more organized. And they're like, oh, it's like very like attacking energy. It's just like, if you see them organize one corner of their room, I love seeing how you're improving your organization. It's inspiring. It's just like those of you that have partners or husbands or wives and you see them clean something, you're like, I love when you clean the kitchen. It's so amazing. Same kind of strategy there, but also really visualizing their potential. So when I coach kids, I coach them, I meet them where they're at, but then I help the high schoolers visualize themselves as college kids. And what would a college kid do? Would they, not turn their assignments in, what would their professor say? Or, a middle school kid, like when you go to high school, you're not only switching classes, you're going to be, and you kind of prep them for, I'm not going to be able to come pick you up. Like you're going to have to figure. So, but you're really the practical side, but also the more like emotional side. So, focusing on their, like, if they're having trouble, like with resiliency, a lot of kids recently, like I've seen, or not recently for a while, as soon as something gets hard, they just give up, and it's sometimes hard for them to persevere if they don't like the subject or don't like the teacher or, whatever it is that's kind of getting in the way for them, instead of just, persevering through. A lot of times that can be a struggle for kids. So, kind of visualizing their potential, like, so, or they have, trouble with peer interactions, and we kind of put them in but I want to be an architect when I'm older. Okay, well, you're going to have a team. How would an architect work on a team with, say you're put in a group as a sixth grader and you have these kids in your group that just like aren't doing their work and you're frustrated and you hate being in a group, and it's kind of like helping them to visualize themselves in their future. So I was talking to an 11-year-old last night that was in a group, and she was like, I was the leader and I didn't really like being the leader. And then but I told all the other kids were like, well, you got to do the work because you're the leader. And she's like, I told them that's not how this works. And I was like, oh, good for you. So she really like stood up for herself, saw herself in that leadership role, even though she didn't really feel comfortable, she kind of knew what to do. So I was, really congratulating her on that. So it's kind of like, celebrating any wins that they have and really like being their mirror and like reflecting their capacity to them and like affirming their growth. So always reinforcing their effort. So, okay, maybe you're struggling with math and you got a C, and we're like really upset with that, like you don't get C's, you get A's. And then, but really, honestly, if this unit was really hard for them and you saw them studying and you saw them, trying to get their work in and staying after, and they brought that F up to a C, well, that's effort. So no, we don't want our kids to have D's and F's and even C's, but the point is like, it's their effort. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
What if you don't see, what if you don't see an effort there and they got a C because they are not
studying? Well, that's different. Yeah, that's a different situation.
Right.
So that's, so
because
that's, yeah.
It's easier when you see improvement, but when you don't see improvement and then the arguing coming. So it's like,
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's where you can have the conversation of like, okay, helping them to reflect on what they did that didn't work for them and what they did that did work for them. So even if they got the C, so did they, let's just say there was 10 assignments and they handed in 3 assignments. Okay, we're not happy with that you did 3 out of 10, obviously. But on those 3, you did really well. You got a 95 on those 3 assignments. So that's kind of proving like you can do it. Okay, so what did you do on those 3 assignments that worked? And how can we transfer that to this semester and keep doing those strategies? Oh, well, that night I don't know, I was able to get I was really focused. I didn't use my phone on my homework, you know, and whatever the things were.
right.
Okay, so those things are working for you. Instead of saying like, you need to do this because you got to see. Well, those things were working for you. Okay, so how can we implement those things? And then we put them into like, whether you want to use a habit tracker, whether you want to just help them reinforce those things that they know worked for them, then you can actually see the growth. And then if it isn't still working, then we got to do other things, of course. But just looking at the positive that did come out of that grade, even though they slacked on most of the math or the science or whatever it was, what can I pull out of it that was good and give them praise for that? Because frankly, they could have been just like really off. They could have, they could have really been slacking and just fooling around too. So, we don't know where their emotionality is at. We want to give them benefit of the doubt, but we also know when they're taking advantage. There's a difference, right? So, but yeah, just even any positives that came out of that and then having them reflect on it and then having them, lead them to build their own plan, you know, and then a lot of times what you can say is if you're building that plan with them and it's hard to sometimes not give advice, you can just basically ask, like, would you like some advice on this situation? I know that you, don't love getting a C and I'm not upset with you. I'm just, disappointed. And if do you want some support around that? And then they may say yes. Instead of just offering all this advice and they're just like, I'm already frustrated and upset with myself. And now you're just telling me what I need to do. And then they get mad. Right. So yeah, sometimes just asking, just kind of like, just like you would ask your spouse or your partner, like same thing. If they want advice, because I know they don't always want advice either.
No,
No.
no, that's the point.
Yeah.
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 The
So
reaction
yeah.
is to tell them what to do always.
Mhm.
The hard part is to see the positive side and try to offer without pressure, giving so much pressure on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. And because like where they could be and what their potential is. And when they're not living up to it, you just get really frustrated. So, and it's difficult. So instead of getting frustrated, it's like, how can I embrace them, but also, still have my boundaries and still have the expectation that they have those good grades, but, maybe they just need a little bit of support here. And if they're just really being terrible, then you have to turn on a different mom then, yeah, yeah,
Right.
totally. So yeah, so I'm just going to tell a little bit about, I talked a little bit about what I do already. But yeah, when I support families, I'm supporting them through different shifts and transformations. So your 6th grader may shift 3 times throughout 6th grade, 10 times throughout 7th grade. There's all different things, whether it be with relationships or leadership or communication. It could be with, it's life. So there's a million things they could be shifting, but we work on their emotional regulation for sure. And that the state that they're in. So you can't really create from a disempowered state. So if they're feeling good about themselves and their family and their life and things are going well and they're projecting that, then they're going to do well in school. They're gonna give effort. But if they're feeling something other than an empowered state and they're feeling really disempowered, we have to work on that first before we can really get into their habits and routines and then them taking meaningful action. So we integrate that emotionality with the actual like action steps that they're going to take. So yes, we dig down to the root cause of why things occur and I help them through that. But also we don't spend a lot of time in the past. We kind of like, what can we learn from this? And, we take actions to move forward. So they would, kids that work with me are committed. Some of them know exactly what they want to work on. Some of them, we work through that. But they know they want support and they're committed to becoming their best selves. We really get them to look at their foundation. Like, what is your vision for yourself? What is your what is your values? What do you believe in about yourself? And if you believe like these negative thoughts about yourself, that's what we need to shift, so that you can get to this vision and really find your purpose. And so is a sixth grader going to find their purpose for their life when they work with me? Maybe, maybe not, so, but what they can do is take action steps towards this direction or that direction. Because if you have some sort of purpose and it shifts, and you wanted to work with animals in sixth grade, and then in ninth grade, you want to work with, be an accountant, it doesn't matter. It's that you're working towards some sort of purpose. So it's more overarching. When I work with like seniors, or I work with kids that are 22, it's a different kind of conversation on purpose. But it's really, it's helping them to envision themselves where they want to be and helping them to transform in that. So to work with me, and I'll put some links up later. If you haven't put your email in the chat, go ahead and drop your email in the chat, because the Zoom did not pick up the emails if you didn't do that already. I will send the replay of this session, and I have plenty of social media content. You can friend me on Facebook. Is more of my content's on Facebook. I have some on Instagram, but definitely go to Facebook. I have a YouTube channel with almost 100 videos on all different kinds of things. And I create new ones, like as ideas come up or parents talk to me and I'm like, ooh, I haven't done that. So I'm consistently updating that. I have a free Facebook group. So that's another, I'll put the code up in here, and I'll drop the link in here as well. And then I offer classes like this, and I'm just going to take a picture of those emails that people were dropping, because I want to make sure I get you what you need. So I got that one, and I got Elda. Good. All right. And then yeah, so also I have strategy sessions. So if you feel comfortable and you want to sign up to just meet with me for, 15, 20 minutes, no pressure, just what would an individualized journey look like for your teen? So I have like a program, I have things that I work with, but it doesn't look the same for everyone. So as you saw, one mom in here was sharing that they had interpersonal, they wanted to work on the interpersonal skills with teens. Another mom might want to work with helping them track their, like their behavior and their focus and their time in the morning, or, and then it morphs into other things. So, what does that support look like for your family specifically? And essentially I work with the whole family. So if I'm meeting with like that, I explained like that daughter with, on the Wednesday nights, mom is in communication with me, daughter's in communication with me, dad, everybody's involved. And, if we need to have a session together, we have a session together. If it's communication, but I have like unlimited 24/7 support that you can reach out to me in addition to our meetings. So, if that's something you're interested in too, I can share my calendar as well. So it's really about integrating the whole family. And most parents I work with are already either working with a coach, or working on their childhood trauma, are involved in some way in their own growth, and want to see that growth for their teen as well. So it's really nice, a nice situation to be able to work with the whole family. So I'm thinking if you want to join my Facebook group, that's the QR code. But if you're